Imagine trying to use the bathroom while wearing what can only be described as wearable architecture. You're wrapped in enough fabric to house a small family. Your waist is cinched so tightly into a corset that taking a deep breath feels like a luxury. And you're surrounded by the ever-watchful eyes of polite society, people who would absolutely faint if they knew the clever and sometimes shocking ways Victorian women handled the most basic human necessity. Today, we're peeling back the velvet curtains on one of history's most puzzling secrets: how women in the Victorian era managed to relieve themselves while dressed like grand monuments to fashion. And trust me, once you hear the methods they used, you'll never look at a chamber pot the same way again. Before we dive into the hidden world of petticoats, privies, and perfectly timed exits, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I think it's amazing how we can connect across the globe to uncover these bizarre and brilliant slices of history together. And if you love strange but true stories from the past, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more secrets, scandals, and survival strategies from history's most fascinating eras. Now, let's step back in time to an age where going to the bathroom was basically an extreme sport. A Victorian woman's daily dressing routine was less about getting ready and more about suiting up for battle. It started with a simple linen chemise, her base layer, meant to protect her fine outerwear from sweat and skin. Next came the corset, laced so tightly it could, and often did, reshape a woman's ribcage. Then, layers, petticoat after petticoat. Some women wore 6, 7, or even more. These weren't just for modesty. They were for volume, warmth, and structure. But the pièce de résistance, the crinoline, a cage of steel hoops held together with fabric tapes, the crinoline was a marvel of 19th century fashion engineering. It created that iconic bell-shaped silhouette, but made walking, sitting, and, yes, bathroom trips a logistical nightmare. And that's where things get really interesting. This fashion contraption, the crinoline, could span up to 6 feet in diameter. That's right, 6 feet. Just imagine trying to sit down or walk through a doorway. Every step was a calculated move, every chair a potential obstacle. In fact, some homes had to commission special furniture just to accommodate the sheer volume of a woman's skirts. Living inside this mobile architecture meant Victorian women had to rethink everything about how they moved, sat, and, most surprisingly, how they handled basic hygiene. What should have been a simple act, going to the bathroom, became a carefully choreographed performance requiring forethought, coordination, and often assistance. Enter the unsung hero of this daily drama, the chamber pot. But these weren't just bowls tucked under beds. No, women's chamber pots were specifically designed for the challenge. Many had elongated oval shapes and curved interiors, engineered to nestle gracefully between layers of skirts and petticoats. High-end versions came with tightly fitted lids, not only to control odor, but to discreetly communicate to household staff whether they needed attention. In upper-class homes, chamber pots were often hidden in plain sight. Elegant chairs concealed removable basins. Lavishly carved wooden cabinets held multiple pots, their true purpose masked by beautiful craftsmanship. Elaborate commodes disguised necessity with style. And behind the scenes, a silent army of servants, highly trained, highly discreet, moved through the home like bathroom ninjas, checking, emptying, and cleaning these hidden systems without disrupting the illusion of decorum. But using one, that was a different story entirely. A Victorian woman couldn't just lift her skirts and squat. She was essentially entombed in 20 pounds of fabric, steel, lace, and ribbon. So she had to master a maneuver that blended ballet, physics, and stealth. The chamber pot would be strategically positioned underneath, and through a combination of graceful posture, calculated shifting, and strategic fabric tucking, she could relieve herself without removing a single layer of clothing. And this wasn't just at home. At formal gatherings, balls, dinners, theatre events, grander solutions were required. That's where the retiring room came in. These weren't bathrooms in the modern sense. They were more like lavish powder rooms or ladies' lounges, elegant spaces staffed with discreet attendants who assisted women in navigating their monumental attire for moments of privacy. These rooms were critical because when nature called, fashion didn't pause. These so-called retiring rooms weren't just pretty lounges. They were precision operations, staffed with well-trained maids who functioned like high society pit crews. These women moved swiftly and silently to assist with one of the most complicated tasks a lady could face. Using the bathroom in a steel and lace cage, they helped lift, layer, adjust, and arrange, making sure the chamber pot was perfectly positioned and that the entire operation remained invisible to the rest of the party. Cleanup was handled quickly, discreetly, and with the kind of poise that kept the illusion of effortless elegance intact. Victorian women were more than fashion icons. They were logistical geniuses navigating the most impractical outfits with unshakable composure. But here's where things take a shocking turn. For a significant portion of the Victorian era, most women didn't wear what we'd recognize today as underwear. That's right, no panties, no briefs, nothing. The logic? With 6 to 7 layers of petticoats, crinolines, and skirts, modesty was already secured. The sheer volume of fabric was considered sufficient coverage. Until it wasn't. As crinolines grew wider and more dramatic, public incidents started happening. Imagine walking down a busy London street when a sudden gust of wind catches your 6-foot-wide skirt and flips it completely inside out like a fashion-forward umbrella. In an instant, what had been a modest silhouette became a full-on accidental exhibition. These wardrobe malfunctions became so common and so mortifying that society finally admitted maybe it was time for a bit of added protection. Enter split-crotch drawers. Now, before you gasp, let's clarify. These were not your modern-day underwear, far from it. These drawers consisted of 2 loose pant legs connected only at the waistband. The genius was in the gap, a strategic split down the middle that allowed women to relieve themselves without removing or adjusting anything. It was modesty when you needed it, and freedom when you didn't. Function disguised as fashion, an elegant workaround for an era that demanded poise above all else, even while peeing in a hidden pot beneath 20 pounds of fabric. But the logistics of Victorian bathroom routines didn't stop at chamber pots and clever undergarments. Oh no. When it came to personal hygiene, the complications ran far deeper. Let's talk cleaning supplies. Toilet paper, as we know it today, was barely a glimmer in anyone's imagination. It wasn't commercially available until the very end of the Victorian era. So what did people use instead? Whatever they could get their hands on. For the average household, that might mean torn-up newspapers, catalogue pages, or even corn cobs and leaves. Yes, corn cobs. In rural areas, these were shockingly common. In more refined homes, soft cloths were the preferred choice, particularly among wealthy women. Squares of linen or flannel were washed and reused, providing a more comfortable and sanitary option than, say, the Sears catalogue. But even these washable cloths required diligent care. They had to be laundered, dried, and rotated by household staff who knew exactly how to maintain a delicate balance of discretion and sanitation. And of course, everything had to be done quietly, because polite society didn't talk about such things. They simply expected them to be handled invisibly. And then, of course, there was menstruation. Victorian women faced their periods with the same ingenuity they applied to everything else, by creating complex systems that allowed them to bleed in silence beneath 30 pounds of fabric. The most common solution: homemade cloth pads paired with something called a tea bandage. The tea bandage was essentially a cotton or linen belt that wrapped around the waist and between the legs, anchoring absorbent material in place. And what was used for that absorbent core? Anything available. Rags, scraps of cotton, moss, even sheep's wool. These makeshift pads had to be changed frequently, up to 12 or 20 times a day during heavy flow. And remember, women had to manage all of this without the help of modern elastic, adhesives, or even decent plumbing. They did it under their skirts, in silence, without complaint. Because menstruation wasn't just a taboo, it was almost invisible. Even among women, it wasn't discussed aloud. As if that weren't enough, maintaining those stunning gowns added yet another layer of difficulty. Victorian dresses were marvels of design, yards of fabric, intricate lace, elaborate beading, but they were not easy to clean. Most households didn't even attempt to wash them regularly. In fact, many homes had only 2 major laundry days a year, known ominously as the Great Wash Days, where everything from curtains to undergarments to uniforms was scrubbed, boiled, and line-dried over the course of several exhausting days. But the dresses themselves, too delicate, too expensive, too complex. Instead, they were preserved through meticulous care, brushed clean of dust, aired out to release body odors, and dusted with powders to absorb sweat and oils. Only the undergarments, the linen shifts, chemises, and later the split-crotch drawers were washed on a regular basis. These layers acted as a buffer, protecting the luxurious outerwear from skin contact and helping maintain hygiene where it mattered most. In short, a Victorian woman's hygiene routine was a full-time job, carefully curated, heavily managed, and almost entirely invisible to the outside world. Victorian ingenuity didn't stop at the threshold of the home. Public facilities, if you could call them that, were a masterclass in improvisation, inherited straight from the Middle Ages. Take the garderobe system, for example, a holdover from medieval architecture that featured discreet openings in upper-story walls. These served one primary purpose: waste disposal, right onto the street. And if you happened to be walking below when someone upstairs needed to empty a chamber pot, you'd hear a shout, "Gardez l'eau," French for "watch out for the water." That was your cue to dive for cover before, well, let's just say the heavens opened. But here's where it gets even stranger. Chamber pot waste wasn't always seen as garbage. In times of war, particularly during conflicts like the Napoleonic and Crimean Wars, urine was actually collected for its chemical properties. It could be processed into saltpeter, a critical component in the production of gunpowder. That's right. Your bodily waste could literally help win a war. It was hygiene meets national service in the most bizarre way imaginable. And while we're on the subject of the public and the private, let's just say Victorian ideas of privacy were very different from ours. In working-class homes, chamber pots were often shared among family members and used in full view of one another. At garden parties or outdoor events, it wasn't uncommon for gentlemen to wander off into the hedges to relieve themselves right among the roses. There were rules, of course: discretion, silence, the stiff upper lip. But the line between public and private was a bit blurrier than you might expect. And yet, through it all, Victorian women maintained their reputations for elegance and grace. They moved through daily life bound in corsets, balancing hoop skirts wider than doorways, navigating strict social expectations, and still managed to appear poised and polished. Behind that facade was an astonishing network of systems, strategies, and silent routines. They developed bathroom techniques that defied logic, hygiene protocols that required military precision, and social customs designed to preserve dignity at all costs. Because let's be honest, if you can manage your period, your bowel movements, and your bladder all while wearing a steel cage, and do it in silence without wrinkling your lace, you're not just fashionable, you're a master of survival. Victorian women weren't just icons of beauty and femininity. They were innovators, tacticians, and unflappable forces of nature wrapped in silk and steel. The solutions Victorian women created were nothing short of ingenious, practical, discreet, and remarkably effective. Even if they strike us today as bizarre, overcomplicated, or outright shocking, they made perfect sense in a world governed by social codes and strict appearances. But this isn't just a tale of chamber pots and crinolines. This glimpse into Victorian bathroom culture pulls back the lace curtain on the values of the era, on how deeply appearances mattered, how rigid gender roles shaped everyday life, and how extraordinary women became experts at adapting to systems not built with their needs in mind. It's a reminder that human beings have always found a way to survive, sometimes with grace, often with grit, and always with creativity. These women were pioneers in problem solving. They engineered workarounds for clothing that was practically unwearable. They developed silent strategies to manage their bodies in public spaces. They moved through their days with a quiet mastery that is, frankly, awe-inspiring. And what's perhaps most astonishing, these elaborate rituals, so exhausting to imagine now, became utterly normal, part of the daily routine, seamlessly woven into the rhythm of life. Victorian women lived by schedules dictated not just by social obligations, but by biology, architecture, and fabric. They planned their fluid intake with precision. They timed their outings around access to retiring rooms. They coordinated with one another for shared assistance, often without exchanging a single word about the real reason why. It required not only logistical skill, but psychological strength, because maintaining dignity under pressure is one thing. Doing it while laced into a corset, wearing 20 pounds of steel and silk, balancing on a dance floor, and smiling through it all. That's something else entirely. So the next time you complain about tight jeans or a busy restroom, spare a thought for the women of the 19th century who danced, dined, and dominated society, while secretly navigating one of the most absurdly complicated bathroom systems in history. They weren't just fashionable, they were fearless. Behind the lace and steel, beneath the skirts and silence, Victorian women built something even more powerful than fashion, a secret sisterhood of knowledge and survival. Mothers passed down techniques like heirlooms, how to layer, how to maneuver, how to disappear gracefully when nature called. Servants became experts in the choreography of discretion, trained to assist without ever acknowledging what they were doing. Entire networks of women quietly developed unspoken codes, a glance, a subtle hand gesture, a graceful excuse to retire, to signal their needs without violating the rigid boundaries of polite society. These weren't just social niceties. They were essential lifelines in a world that demanded silence around the most basic functions of the human body. And this intricate world came with a staggering economic footprint. In wealthy households, entire teams of women, laundresses, ladies' maids, seamstresses, wardrobe managers were employed just to keep a single woman dressed, polished, and presentable. Every ribbon, lace trim, corset, and chemise required care. It wasn't just fashion, it was an industry, a full-time ecosystem dedicated to the maintenance of one woman's social image. But here's the twist. All this inconvenience, all this restriction and ritual, it may have unintentionally created space for something liberating. Because managing these monumental outfits made frequent public activity impractical, many upper-class women spent more time at home or in structured, predictable settings. And within those spaces, out of the public eye, they began to read more, write more, learn more. They explored music, painting, literature. They educated their daughters. Some ran salons, hosted intellectual gatherings, or wrote under pseudonyms. In a strange way, the very fashion that limited their movement may have fueled a quiet revolution in thought and creativity. Historians have begun to reframe the image of the Victorian woman, not as a delicate ornament weighed down by silk and steel, but as a resilient strategist, finding freedom in the few spaces available to her. A woman who mastered both her body and her mind in a world designed to constrain them both. So, the next time you marvel at a portrait of a Victorian lady, elegant, upright, wrapped in yards of brocade, look closer. Behind that posture is pressure. Behind that grace is grit. Behind that fashion is fierce survival. The shift away from these extreme fashion constraints didn't happen overnight. It took decades, a slow evolution shaped by changing roles, shifting values, and the rise of practicality. The popularization of the bicycle, for instance, gave women a reason to ditch restrictive skirts in favor of something they could actually move in. And when World War I arrived, bringing with it an urgent need for women to step into roles traditionally held by men, the elaborate silhouettes of the Victorian era simply couldn't keep up. Crinolines gave way to bustles, and bustles eventually gave way to slimmer, more functional designs that allowed for independence, mobility, and freedom. Looking back, it's easy to see these massive wardrobe systems as quaint, even ridiculous. But buried within the corsets and cage skirts is a deeper truth, a testament to human adaptability. Victorian women didn't just endure their limitations, they outsmarted them. They built systems of elegance and efficiency in the most unlikely places. They maintained dignity, health, and social standing while wearing some of the most impractical garments ever created. And in doing so, they laid the groundwork for something greater. The legacy of Victorian women isn't just found in lace trims and polished manners. It echoes in fashion innovation, social etiquette, modern plumbing, and public health reforms. Their whispered techniques and quiet strength helped usher in practical clothing, better sanitation systems, and a cultural understanding that personal care deserves dignity and access, not shame or silence. So the next time you step into a clean, well-lit bathroom, slip into a stretchy pair of leggings, or handle your most basic needs without a second thought, remember this: you're standing on the petticoated shoulders of women who built elegance out of restriction and freedom out of fabric. They turned corseted chaos into choreography. They made survival look effortless, and they left behind a legacy of resilience, innovation, and quiet power. So take a moment, truly take it in, and appreciate the incredible journey that brought us from chamber pots and crinoline cages to the comfort of modern bathrooms and the luxury of sweatpants. The Victorian women who navigated these daily challenges with grace, grit, and a whole lot of ingenuity paved the way for the freedoms and conveniences we now take for granted. Their story is more than a historical curiosity. It's a powerful reminder that human innovation doesn't always come from laboratories or boardrooms. Sometimes it comes from women managing the impossible under 20 pounds of steel hoops and silence. Because the truth is this: comfort is often born from discomfort. Progress is often driven by constraint, and what begins as necessity can, in the right hands, become art. Victorian women transformed adversity into elegance. They built systems so sophisticated, so seamless, that they maintained poise and dignity, even in the most private, most difficult moments. They were walking works of art and undercover engineers. And that is the incredible hidden story of how women in the 19th century managed one of life's most basic needs while dressed like sculptures in motion. It's a testament to human creativity, to resilience, and to the lengths we go to preserve our dignity, no matter the era. So, what did you think of this journey into the secret world of Victorian bathroom culture? Let me know in the comments. And if you loved diving into this lesser-known slice of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. From ancient beauty rituals that will absolutely shock you, to medieval dining habits that will change how you think about food, we're exploring the weird, the wild, and the wonderful truths that textbooks left out. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey through time, and I'll see you in the next video, where we uncover another historical mystery that just might make you question everything you thought you knew about the past.